Today's sponsor is Project Pals, an amazing collaborative workspace for students to create and work with projects. Stay tuned at the end of the show to learn more about getting started for free and how I'm using Project Pals in my classroom. Transformative Teaching in Tough Times, Part 1, Episode 393.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
So today we're talking to Sia Kyriakakos. She is the 2016-17 Baltimore City Teacher of the Year, the 2017 Maryland State Teacher of the Year. Sia, you really believe in the artist mindset and global competency. Okay, those are two things that aren't talked about a lot together. Help me understand.
Well, for me, I am an artist. I was an artist first and a teacher second, but I didn't realize how these two professions could go hand in hand till I returned to my classroom in an urban setting, and I used my global competencies that I had sort of developed and picked up in my journeys and used them in my classroom. So what I mean by that, when you leave the country and you're in a new culture with new people and you're humbled by your ignorance of the language or the attributes of the people, and you marvel in the beauty of what they have to offer to the world, right? Mm-hmm. You're put at a place that you didn't know existed. So you have to drop a lot of your ego and your biases in order to absorb that other culture. So when I came to teach in Baltimore City, even though I had been born in Baltimore, I had been raised here, I had worked in the heart of the city because my parents owned a little diner right in the middle across from Johns Hopkins Hospital. In any case, I had grown up there in Mamma Mia's on Broadway and Monument. I returned to Baltimore City to teach here, and it was like returning home to my people. But when I walked into the classroom, it was a culture clash, and it was as if I was in a foreign country where I didn't speak the language, where I didn't know the norms, where I didn't know the code, and I had to start over. And it was, again, just as humbling as visiting a country where you have no footing. And I had to start at the beginning, and I had to open up myself, quiet my own voice to listen to my students and learn from them.
So, Sia, what does your classroom look like? What are the things that you're constantly repeating to your students, and what kind of things are they doing in your classroom?
I'm constantly, like today, I introduced portraiture to them, and one of my favorite artists, which is culturally relevant to them because I mostly teach African-American kids, is Kehinde Wiley, who coincidentally last year finished the painting of President Obama. And as we looked at interviews, we listened and watched interviews of Kehinde Wiley, something that stuck with me was he said the words, I made this portraiture, sorry. So cut some of that and As we looked at videos and interviews of Kehinde Wiley, he talked about portraiture as a way to honor and celebrate people. And for me, that's what I'm doing every day with my students. I want them to honor and celebrate who they are. I want them to see themselves as powerful, and I grind it right in them. Like my objective on the wall, and I'm not sure if it's unpacked from the standard or not, and I don't really care, is like we will speak, see, and vision and create ourselves as powerful and reclaim ourselves in society. And I say this over and over again to them because I want them to be ambassadors to their culture and represent themselves as beautiful as I see them.
How do they respond to that?
Well, they're sort of taken aback, like, well, why do we need to do this, Miss K? Like the first assignment I give them is, it used to be really light, like, who are you? Tell me about yourself. And slowly the story that started unfolding like pushed me to ask the deeper questions, like what have been your successes in life? How has your family or your setting or your zip code affected who you've become today? What are your values? What brings you happiness? And different stories started to unravel because I pushed them so hard. And one of my students just and I said this year, and do you have any questions like that? And one of my students, Destiny, raises her hand. She's like, well, why do we need to tell you all our personal stuff? Why do you care? Why? Well, this is like, what do you care? What I value? That's my business. And I said, sure, it is. But you know what? We have had 200 killings in Baltimore City this year. We are number 5 in terms of crime rate and the violence. We talk about in the class about the kids always complain about police brutality and all that. But the real violence that's happening in Baltimore City is not cops against kids or not cops against the African-American population. It's black on black. And the only way to stop this is for you to understand each other's perspectives. It's for you to start trusting each other. It's for you to start talking to each other as the real brothers and sisters that you say that you are. So I do not have to go to another funeral of another student of mine. I'm done with that. And we had this real heart-to-heart conversation. And right there, although I don't want to make this sound banal, it was global competencies that I was advocating for, right? It was understanding somebody else's perspective, right? And the action is the writing. The action is the art.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking, this is the art. This is the art of living life. I mean, you're an art teacher, but you talk like somebody who's really making a difference in saying the things that need to be said. I mean, these are things that need to be said, but they're hard. And it's hard to have the kind of credibility to say that because, we all have a different perspective. We're all, I don't want to say we have to earn the right to say things, but, like you said, there are different cultures, right?
Mm-hmm. See, I feel this sense of urgency, right? I'd rather be going to baby showers and weddings. But when I have attended my first funeral of the school year already of a student or a sibling of a student, there's no time. And I only have my students for I have them for 2 months. So you can cut that. I only have my students for 2 months, if you think about it. I only have them for a semester. And if you take the weekends out and the 20 days of testing that we have to sacrifice to Pearson, right? I only have my kids for 2 months out of their lives. That's it. And what do I really want to teach them? Right? Like for me, what do I want them to leave my classroom with, right? I want them to be able to pronounce my name correctly, Kyriakakos, because I think it's like learning a foreign language. So then they have a respect for every foreigner's name, so they can have respect for every foreigner's name that they come across and they try to pronounce it, because name carries identity, right, and culture. So I want them to learn that, and I want them to get that message. And also I want them to understand themselves, who they are, where they come from, and what they can give back to culture, their culture and the general culture.
Today's sponsor is Project Pals. Project Pals has a useful classroom collaborative platform that lets you create and manage projects for your students. Right now, my students are creating and managing a project as they're creating a podcast to record powerful stories from the recent storms in our area. Project Pals connects with Google Classroom, but also lets me see the detail on which students are contributing and participating. I also love the task board, which is a Trello-like Kanban board that lets students create, assign, and complete tasks. You can also link in Google Docs and do brainstorming and so much more. It's really a very powerful tool. I will be featuring this tool on my blog and newsletter this week. So go to projectpals.com. That's projectpals.com and sign up today.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.